Hi players, bonjour from Geneva, my name is Asaf and welcome to my channel Easy Board Games. Today we're going to have a preview and an overview for Revenant that is published by Mindclash Games. Before we're getting started, just one disclaimer, the game that you're about to see is a prototype, so obviously some of the components and some of the art are a subject for a change. And with that guys, let's just go and see what this game is all about. Revenant is a 1 to 4 player game that is mainly a worker placement, but we are going to have here some different elements like resource management, hidden influence, and some other small things that we're going to see during this preview. Revenant takes place in the world of Voidfall, but chronologically it's actually a prequel, so everything that we can see over here is what happened before Voidfall actually takes place, when the Voidborn or the bad guys are actually coming right now to our dominion. This game has 4 rounds and each round has a few phases. The first phase that we're actually skipping in the first round is the sonar phase. So let's actually start from the beginning, and the first thing that we're going to have is the action phase. Now over here we're going to have the player boards, and here we can see that we have 3 different workers. We have 2 crew members and we have the commander. In each turn during the action phase, each player is going to take one of their workers, either the commander or one of the crew members, and is going to place it in one of the ships that we can see right now on the board. So let's actually see what we can see right now on the main board, and I can already tell you that this is actually the situation of the board after 3 rounds, but in any case some things of course will not change, like having over here the main ship that is the Revenant. Now over here we have 2 possible actions, but we'll get to there a little bit later. Also, we're having something that is called arc ships. Those are these ships that we can see right now. Yeah, they're a little bit damaged, but we'll get to that a little bit later. But these ships cannot move during the game. Also, we have 4 other types of ships that we can see right now on the board. One of them is the drop ship that at some point will be able to land on one of these planets. Also, we have the fighters, we have the civilian ships, and we have our own frigates. Those are the player's ships actually, that each player is going to have. On top of that, as we've said, we have here some planet cards, again with some actions that players will be able to land on these planets and take one of them. Also, we have here the Voidborn. Those are the bad guys that are going to try and damage our ships, destroy them, and also destroy the Revenant. And we have here the rifts themselves. This is where the Voidborn are going to spawn from. So going back to the action phase, a player is going to take one of their workers and they're going to place them in one of the ships, depending of course on 2 things. First of all, if that ship is available. So if, for example, I already have a worker right over here, other players will not be able to place their worker over here. And also that depends on which action you would like to take. So right over here, the yellow player, for example, will be able to choose if they would like to take this action or this one. Before that, actually, if we're looking at this track right over here, it is very clear what are the things that are going to happen. So I know that you're seeing right now a lot of iconography, but this iconography really makes sense, and once you understood some simple signs, the game is going to be a lot more fluid. So the first thing that is going to happen when a player has placed the worker on one of the ships is that the influence that they have with the house that correspond to this ship is going to raise. Now, I don't really remember the names of the houses, so let's call this one the orange house. This is what we can see right over here. So again, of course, this is not really the situation of the start of the game. This is a little bit more advanced, but it doesn't really matter. In our case, for example, the yellow player is going to raise their influence right over here. Now, why is that important? Because at the end of the game, after resolving the 4 rounds, for each house, we're going to multiply the amount of power of that house with the number of influence that that specific player has. So for example, let's say that the game has ended right now. Part of the final scoring is going to be 3 times 2, that is 6 victory points for the yellow player, but for the blue player, it's going to be only 3. After we have taken the influence, we are going to resolve movement if we wish to and if we can. In our example, the arc ship, as we've said before, cannot move, so movement is not going to take place. And after that, we're going to resolve the action. So in this case, the yellow player again will be able to choose either to take 2 neutroniums, those are part of the resource that we have in this game, or they will be able to do something else. So obviously we're not going to go over all the actions that we have over here because we have quite a lot, which is something that we're going to circle back to a little bit later. And after resolving that action, we will need to take corruption if that ship is corrupted. In our case, yep, this ship is totally corrupted. This is what we can see with this token right over here. And that means that the yellow player will need to take one of these tokens right over here, and they will need to place it on their board. That is going to affect on two things. First of all, if we still have resources in that slot, the yellow player will not be able to use those resources. On top of that, what we can see right over here are basically the bonus actions that we're going to take right after resolving the main action and take corruption if we needed to. Here, for example, we'll be able to take any one resource. Over here, we're going to advance on the tactics track. Over here, we'll be able to play a card, activate ability, and some other cool things like taking out corruption and so on. And after we have finished the bonus action, if there is nothing else to resolve, like playing a card or something like that, the turn is going to go to the next player. And this is what is going to happen 3 times until all players have placed all their workers. Now, the special thing with the commander is that they're going to play a little bit differently. What does it mean? First of all, like you can see right over here with this icon, is that they will be able to move one sector more than all the other ships. So instead of only one, they will be able to move 2, unless of course they have other bonuses that are going to allow them to move more. And also, they're going to have something that is unique to their faction. Now, on top of the commander's special power, we will be able to upgrade our commander. This is something that we'll be able to do with this action, for example, to pay 3 signs and upgrade our commander. And the more we upgrade our commander, the stronger basically the action with the commander will be. And on top of that, we'll be able to draw more cards, for example, on different phases of the game. After we have finished with the action phase, we're going to move on to the breach phase. This is what we can see right over here. And at this time, the Voidborn are actually going to do some damage. So basically, each token of one of these Voidborns are going to do 1 damage. Some ships, as you can see right over here, can take more damage than the others. Now, this is kind of interesting because, as we said, each ship actually affiliates to one of the houses that we have right over here. And every time that we're going to remove a ship from the board, the power of the house is going to go down. So right now, for example, this specific house has only 1 ship on the board. This is why they have only 1 power. So if this ship is going to go down, then basically we have 0 power for this specific house. So as you can already understand, this is something that might be interesting for the yellow player because the blue player is on the lead. So let's take small examples and let's just assume that we had over here 2 Voidborns. Right now, because we're starting from sector 1 all the way to sector 8, the Voidborn are going to do 2 damage, but because we don't have over here ships to take the damage, this damage is going to go directly to the Revenant itself. Now, here's the interesting thing that I would like to show you right over here in sector 3. So basically here we can see that we have 2 Voidborn. That means they're going to apply 2 damage. But we have different ships that they can apply the damage to, right? We have here options. So the thing is that the player that is the closest to that sector will decide how the damage is going to be applied. And this is why we're going to see a little bit how players are going to pay back to each other for different things that they did during the game. So since the yellow player is going to decide how to apply the damage over here, they're probably going to look at this board, the influence board, and they would like to probably destroy the ships that they are not leading with the influence on that house, or on the contrary, they would like to a little bit more divide the damage between ships because they have more interest with the influence on this board. After we have finished applying the damage, we're going to go sector by sector, and if we have a Rift and Voidborn, we're going to add corruption to uncorrupted ships that we already have there. Now, we've talked about what is happening when you're placing your worker on an arc ship, but actually if you're going to place worker on one of the fighters, for example, so let's say that the blue player is going to place their worker right over here. And again, since this is a smaller ship than an arc ship, they will be able to even move up to one adjacent sector, and then they will be able to do 1 damage. So each fighter equals actually 1 damage. Let's say that they're going to take out this Voidborn right over here. And in case it wasn't clear, each Voidborn has only 1 hit point. So the moment you did damage to them, that is it. With that, after you have destroyed one of the Voidborns, you're going to advance on the tactics track. This is something that is going to give us some bonuses going on the way to the top. But actually, with these two icons right over here, we're going to see something pretty cool. These are more bonuses that we'll be able to take when we're going to do something that is called a hyper jump. So let's see what this action is all about actually. Hyper jump is one of the actions that we have right over here on the Revenant. The other action that we have is actually to pay some resources to deploy one of the ships into the board itself. So actually this is a way to increase the power of the different houses. Now the hyper jump is something pretty cool. You're going to pay 3 neutroniums, again one of the resources that we have over here in this game. The moment that a player has decided to take this action, they are going to look at these 2 sonar cards that we have right over here. Now this is basically when you're doing this hyper jump, you're moving to another region in space, to another dominion. And because of that, you will be able to pretty much select to which of the areas you're going to jump to, and this is another setup that we're going to do to the board. And we're going to resolve the hyper jump after we have finished the breach. So let's say that we just finished the breach, we're going to move on to the hyper jump. Again, if the hyper jump is deactivated, what I mean is that no player has taken this action right over here. We're simply going to skip it, so moving on to the next one. But in our case, it's actually activated. So in that case, we're going to simply do whatever it says right over here. So we're actually going to take down all the Voidborn from the map, all the different planets, all the rifts. If we would have had one of these tokens over here, for example, on the way back, because this is part of the things that we're doing, we're going to put on 0 all of these markers of the tactics track. If you're already past 11 or 8, you're going to receive a bonus. This bonus, if you're over here, is just to raise one of the influences of any house that you would like by 1. And over here, we'll be able to take actually a hidden influence card. So what is a hidden influence card? These are just cards that we have with the different symbols of the houses, and they're going to stay as a hidden information from your opponents. At the end of the game, each card that we have right over here is going to be considered like one more influence that we have in this board. After we have finished the hyper jump phase, we're going to move on to the sonar phase. And in this phase, this is the first step actually in the new round. In the sonar phase, we're actually going to do the setup as we have seen on the card that the last player has decided to take. We're going to discard these cards, and then we're going to draw 2 new sonar cards to see what we will be able to do in potentially a future hyper jump action. So Revenant is basically a game of worker placement, and each player is going to do in total 12 actions, right? Because we have 3 workers time 4 rounds, so that is 12. So this game is of course a bit more tight than it might seem, because your amount of actions is very limited. On top of that, of course, as we've said, every time that you're going to place one of your workers in one of the ships, you will not be able to place there another worker. So if still you want to do an action that is on that ship, you will have to find maybe another ship that is going to give you the option to take an action on a ship that is already taken. So after we have finished with the general overview, let me share with you from my experience what did I like in this game. First of all, this is a very crunchy game, as you already imagined. Now we're going to have here a bunch of actions, and you need to think about a few things, and not only about like what is the next action that you would like to do, but actually you need to think about the end game. So every time that I'm going to do something, of course, because the other players don't really know what kind of hidden information, the hidden influence cards I have in my hands. So you are going to be able to play some tricks on your opponents, and that is something that I pretty much appreciate. So things that you might do now, the opponent will think, hold on, are they trying to actually lure me to do some sort of actions? Am I going to fall to this trap, or am I going to do something else? Not so sure. So besides actually this game being very crunchy, it's not like only the worker placement aspect, because we are going to have a resource management, but you need to pay attention because the ships are going to be corrupted over here kind of quickly, and that means that you are going to lose some of your slots that you're having with those resources kind of quickly if you don't pay attention to it. So from a situation that you have maybe a board full of resources, but you do need to take that specific action, and the moment you took it and you are going to corrupt your own ship, damn, then you lost 2 of these resources, which can be quite critical at later times during the game. Now, on top of the worker placements, we're actually going to have here different cards that we'll be able to play, which is another layer that I kind of like, because I mean, I don't know, in games I really enjoy upgrading my characters, or in this case it's going to be the team members, both of the crew members and the commander itself. So each time that you are going to upgrade one of your crew members, the next time that you're going to take an action with them, actually their action is going to be stronger according to what is written on the card. It can be more resources if you're doing a specific mining action, or it can be really different things. As you can see over here, we have a lot of cards, but we're not going to go too much into it. Also, we'll be able to upgrade our own ship. So sometimes maybe you'll be able to do a little bit more damage. Sometimes you'll be able to advance quicker on one of the tracks. Sometimes you'll be able to take more resources. Sometimes it will going to involve the influence. And really, again, you have here so many things that is going to contribute to the replayability that I'm going to talk about in 2 more seconds. And of course, we have the third type of cards, which is just like some sort of an event, let's call it like that. You're going to pay some resources, and then you're going to play this card. And what is cool that in other games, usually when you're doing an event, after that the card is going to the discard pile, but actually in this case the card is going to stay next to your board and you are going to score points for. So this is another thing that I kind of appreciate in this game, because it is very satisfying. Pretty much everything that you are going to do is going to score for you in one way or another some victory points at the end of the game. You got rid of corruption. Perfect, place it on this card, and later if you have 3 of those, you're going to take them down and you're going to draw one of these hidden influence cards. You visited more planets, or you took more discovery tokens, that is going to score for you as well. You did this or you did that, and it's kind of cool because at the end you're not going to feel that you're so far behind the other players. It just depends on what you're going to score. Of course, the victory points are going to rely more on the influence that you have with the different houses, but sometimes you'll be able to do some cool things that your opponents didn't really thought about, and that can be actually the thing that is going to win for you the game. Another thing that I appreciate here a lot is the replayability, and really according to Mindclash tradition, let's say it like that, the replayability here is crazy. So even with a basic setup, you are going to draw different cards and you're going to have different ships that are going to start on the main board at the beginning of the game. But again, every time that you're going to do a hyper jump, and you are going to do some hyper jumps, you'll be able to move to different areas and you're going to set the board again. The crew boards themselves that you'll be able to mix and match every time you're going to choose something else. The cards that you have over here, every game is going to look pretty much different from the game before, and you'll be able to, or more likely you will have to adjust to a new strategy in each and every game. A third aspect that I really appreciate here, and this is actually something that I don't think that I've seen in Mindclash games until now, or at least not in this really sense, or the aspect of the cutthroat over here, because it is going to be sometimes a little bit upsetting or tense that just because one of the frigates of another player was closer to a specific sector, or the more advanced on the tactics track, then they're going to decide how to apply damage to the ships, and you'll be able to see basically the power of the house that you're most advanced in actually go down just because they decided to apply the damage in a way that doesn't suit you. So there is not really over here diplomacy. I mean, you cannot really trade with tokens or something like that with different resources, but I am actually able to see over here some sort of like give and take. You know, you're going to do this one right now, I'm going to try and do things a little bit later. And this is another layer that I appreciate in this game. I mean, I cannot really say that this is a semi-cooperative game because there's no scenario over here or something like that you're all going to lose together. Even if the Revenant is going to explode, you're going to take one of these tiles by random and you're going to have an effect that is going to apply to all the players, negative effect of course, but another Revenant is going to go to the board and you'll be able to continue the game. But you are going to try and talk to the other players and tell them, listen, let's try to destroy some of the Voidborn ships over there. And sometimes some of the players are actually going to have the same incentive to work together because, I don't know, the influence of that specific house is good for both of them. And don't forget, of course, the hidden element that we have over here, and those are the hidden influence cards. So sometimes you might see someone that like is investing too much in something, you're like, but I don't understand why, because their influence with the house is not so great, but you don't really know if what they're doing is actually to their benefit or they're trying to lure you to a certain trap. Now, moving on to some things that I definitely can see as negative things from my experience, or just seeing them and thinking, wow, I think this is going to be a little bit negative. This is the analysis paralysis aspect over here. Because specifically at the beginning of the game, when you have so many ships on the board, you are going to probably come across the situation that you're just not sure where exactly you would like to take the next action, because it affects different things. First of all, when you're placing your worker, you are blocking other players. So sometimes you might want to do that in order for other players not to take that specific action. Also, when you're placing your worker, you are going to increase your influence on the influence board, and also you want to take a specific action. So you cannot have all of it. You cannot block a worker and raise influence where you exactly want and take the action. I mean, for sure it might happen, and that is of course an amazing thing, but most of the time you will have to choose. Now the thing is that especially at the beginning of the game or when you're just starting the learning process, I think that players will be able to just sit in front of the board and really think about what is their next action. Personally, what I suggest in all of the times that I'm explaining how to play or just having some teach sessions is just go for it. You know, if you're really not sure between 1 and 2 and it's already 5-7 minutes that you're looking at the board, just take one of them and it will be okay. So analysis paralysis is one of the things that will probably be the most negative thing that we have over here, because you do have here a lot of options. The second thing over here is that this game, unlike really Voidfall that you had like zero luck, everything is like known in advance and everything, you are going to have here a little bit of luck, especially when it comes to draw the hidden influence cards. So usually when the game is going to instruct you to draw one of those, you're just going to take the first card, unless you have upgraded, for example, your commander. And let me take you back over here to this board. And as you can see, when you're in the first level, you are going to draw only one. Then if you're in the second, you're going to draw 2 and choose only one, then 3, and you understood, etc., etc. But the thing is that just like a good Euro game, you cannot do everything. So unless you have really upgraded your commander, you're only dependent on whatever a card that you just drew. So I'm not saying that the whole game depends on luck, because not all the time you're going to draw these influence cards, even though they're quite important. I'm just saying that unlike other games that we've seen with Mindclash, this game relies a little bit more on luck. You can see it as something that is going to contribute to the replayability. You can see it as something that is like contributing a little bit to the more chaotic aspect of the game, but it is something to take into consideration. And with that, guys, I hope that you enjoyed the video. I hope that you understood a little bit better how does Revenant actually takes place, what are the advantages or disadvantages. That is, of course, according to me, because other players might find those things a little bit different. If you wish to dive a little bit deeper into this game, I have another video that is an explanatory playthrough where I do 2 full rounds of this game with explaining the rules and how does the game go exactly. Feel free to check it out. I'm going to leave a link down below in the description of the video. And until then, take care and I'll see you next time.